All right, good morning, Life Church. How is everyone today? Two people are good. It is good to have you guys here. My name is Brian. I'm the pastor at Life Church Livonia, and I am so grateful to be able to share my Sunday morning with you and love that we can be together. And today is our final day in a series we've been doing called I Choose. And so what we are doing is we're really looking at our life and asking the question, what would it look like if we were intentional about the choices that we make? Especially the choices in our life that really matter, the ones that are super important, because we are the sum total of the decisions that we make. Either the decisions that we make personally or the decisions that are made on our behalf by other people. But we become the result of those decisions. And so often we just are somewhat careless about them. We're somewhat careless about these major life moments, and they pass us by. And what I hope is that at the end of our life, that each one of us wouldn't look back with regret, that we would look back feeling really good about the choices we made and the direction that we chose to move our life in. And that we would move our life into a place that's in alignment with what God's best is for us. And so I can't encourage you enough, if you haven't been here for any of those weeks, to go onto our website and check those out. The very first week we talked about choosing purpose over popularity. And really what this is all about is realizing that God made you for a reason. And popularity is just curated approval of other people. And so instead of living your life for the approval of others, what would it look like to live into the life that God designed you for? Second week, we talked about choosing surrender over control. And with surrender over control, this is tough for so many of us because we like to be in control of every aspect of our life. But with God, we have someone that we can trust enough to completely surrender. Someone that we can trust enough to completely give over everything to. And this is such an important topic for I think all of us. Week 3, we talked about discipline, choosing discipline over regret. That a little bit of discipline now helps us to not experience regret later. And I would much rather choose the pain of discipline now than the pain of regret later. And today we jump into our final topic that we made you wait to the very end for, because it's the choosing the important over the urgent. We weren't in a rush to get here. And we want to help you to understand, what does that look like? Because I think for all of us, we live in a world of the urgent. We live in a world of that's always in a rush, always in a hurry. And I think that probably all of us at some point in our life have wished that we had more hours in a day. Have been in a spot where we're like, I don't know how I'm going to get it all done. Now, the opposite is also true, that we've all also had days when we're like, when will this day be over? But sometimes at the end of the day, you're like, man, if I could just have a few more hours, I could actually get everything accomplished that needs to get done. I wish I had more time to pray. I wish I had more time to play. I wish I had more time just to get the stuff done that I need to get done at work. I wish that I had more time to travel. I wish I had more time. I wish I had enough time to actually volunteer some of my time. And so we think these things, and we wonder, God, what would it be like if I had just a little bit more time? But instead we get stuck in this cycle of urgency and rush and hurry. And on top of the work that we get paid for, we come home, and I started to make a list of all these things that just kind of demand our attention. Mow the yard, do the dishes, change the diapers, pay the bills, make the dinner, clean up the dinner, drive to practice, help with homework, check our Facebook, catch up on our favorite show, prep for volunteer. I can't even get it all out, right? In one breath, you can't even get out. I could make a list that was hundreds of things long. And so what this adds up to is that the most common response that we get to the question, how are you doing, is does anyone know what it is? I'm either good and you lie, or you say I'm busy. Everything's good, but I'm really busy, right? Everything's good, but I'm really busy. I hear that all the time. No matter who you are, I almost always hear people say, I'm good, but I'm really busy. And sometimes it's true. It's not always a lie. Sometimes you actually do feel like you're good. But I'm convinced that the devil can't make us do bad things, but he is the master at keeping us so busy that we become a slave to the urgent around us. We become a slave to this pressing, crushing, all the time feeling like we have something really urgent to do in our life. And because of that, we miss out on the things that are most important in our life. This doesn't happen to everyone, and it doesn't happen all the time. But for a lot of us, we miss out because we are stuck in this place. We convince ourselves that we don't have enough time for important things. But the truth is this. The truth is that we have time for what we choose to have time for. All of us have the time for what we choose to have time for. If it is important enough to you, you will make time for it. It's the way it works. We have time for what we choose to have time for. And so today what I want to do is to encourage you over the next days and weeks and months and years of your life my hope, my prayer is that you would choose the important over the urgent. That we would learn to choose the important over the urgent. So I want to give you some examples in just real life about how this could play itself out and why it's important to choose the important over the urgent, why this is a necessity for us. Let's just look at a business, for instance. If you own a business or you run a business and you have a really angry customer standing right in front of you, it's urgent to attend to that angry customer, isn't it? Well, what's actually important, though, is creating a system that would create a better business practices so you don't have angry customers in the first place. Do you see the difference? Urgent is attending to the needs of this angry customer. Important is creating a system by which they wouldn't get angry in the first place. It's urgent if you're driving down the road and your car stops working. You hear a really bad noise from your engine, and steam starts to come up and you pull over to the side of the road. It's urgent that you get that addressed and that you get your car fixed because that's how you get to work. That's how you go to get groceries. That's how you take the kids to school. That's how you do everything in this life. We don't really have good public transportation in Livonia, and so you need your car. It's urgent to get your car fixed. But guess what's important? Changing your oil so that your car engine doesn't blow up. No one taught me this when I was younger. I could tell you a story about a time with me and a car that actually literally blew up because I didn't change the oil. Not good. It's important to learn to do these rhythms so that we don't have urgent issues later. When you're sick, when you get really sick, it's urgent to get the right care. But what's even more important is taking care of your body to prevent things that are preventable. There are so many things that we have issues with in our health that are preventable if we would attend to the important things in our life and in our health before it becomes urgent. Every single one of these situations, and in so many more in our lives, if we paid attention to what's important, it would actually decrease the number of things in our life that feel urgent. And I believe that we wouldn't always be in a hurry. We are always in a hurry. Everywhere I look, I see people that are in a hurry. We're in a hurry on the road. We're in a hurry at the grocery store, mapping out which line we think is going to be the shortest one so we can get home sooner, right? And then always failing. I always pick the wrong line. And one of the things that strikes me about Jesus is I read the story of his life and the story of his ministry in the New Testament and then the 4 Gospels that tell Jesus' story. Over and over again, I read it, and I'm struck by the reality that Jesus was never in a hurry. Ever. He was never in a hurry. And we can look over and over again at different stories about him, but what we see in the scriptures is that Jesus never allowed the tyranny of the urgent to dictate his priorities. Ever. I can't think of a single time when Jesus was in a rush. But I can think of a lot of times when Jesus was really slow and methodical and just patient and calm in the midst of things that would have made me crazy. I would have been stressed and rushing and in a hurry, and it would have felt super urgent, and I would have been probably grumpy at the people around me, right? But if we look at stories like in Luke chapter 8, when this guy Jairus comes to Jesus and his daughter's ill, and he's like begging Jesus to come and heal his daughter. And that feels urgent, right? Like, my daughter is dying, Jesus. Please come and attend to her. So Jesus gets up and just kind of starts wandering that direction. There's a huge crowd of people. It's hard to get anywhere fast when there's a crowd of people. And they're walking towards this moment when he's going to attend to this sick little girl. And along the way, because he's not in a hurry, he noticed that someone touched him. Imagine if you were Jairus. Right? Imagine that you're like, hey, my daughter, remember the one that's dying? And you're standing here saying, who touched me? Not in a hurry. It's not because Jesus didn't care about Jairus or didn't care about his daughter. He knew that he had that covered. He knew that he had it in control. What he also knew is that a woman had touched him who desperately needed him to not be in a hurry that day. A woman touched him that desperately needed him to turn and say, "Who touched me?" So he could see her, so he could interact with her, so he could heal her as well and change her life forever. We see the same thing in John chapter 11 when he hears that his good friend Lazarus is sick. That would have felt urgent to me. Like, I'm going to go right now and attend to my boy Lazarus. But what does Jesus do? He's like, let's just hang out here for a few more days. I've got some other things I got to attend to. And his disciples are all like, this feels urgent to us. And he finally gets to where Lazarus was, and Lazarus is already dead, and all of Lazarus' family are like, why weren't you in more of a hurry? Jesus is like, I got it. Lazarus is raised from the dead. In Mark chapter 6, the crowds are pressing in, and it feels really urgent to everyone else but Jesus. And he's like, hey, let's just pull back and hang out for a bit together and rest. As a church planter, I get why that doesn't even make sense, because you're like, man, we're doing this ministry and crowds are finally coming. Like, this is urgent. We got to attend to the crowds. We got to pay attention to the crowds. We got to do what we need to do to make sure that everyone feels welcome and everyone feels taught and everyone feels cared for. We need to do what we need to do so that they come back again, right? And Jesus is like, no, we're good. Let's hang out for a bit. And they withdraw and they rest and they relax. Jesus was never in a hurry. And I have to be honest with you, I think that a lot of us would have been annoyed by him. True. I think that there's a lot of people that would have been like, today, Junior, let's go. Come on, Jesus. Because the rhythm that he was walking to, it was like there was a rhythm that was ticking in his heart that was different than anything else that anyone else had. In music, we use a metronome at times to set a rhythm. And I believe ours is set really fast, and Jesus's was attuned to the perfect rhythm of life, the rhythm that our hearts operate best at. I think we would have been annoyed by Jesus's rhythm, and I see it in the life of his disciples. And we have so much to learn from Jesus. Even if you are here today and you're not a believer, even if you're not a Christian, Jesus, his life has so much to offer us. We can learn from his unhurried rhythms. Because if we stepped into his rhythms, instead of feeling like there was never enough time to accomplish these urgent things in our life and missing out on all these important things in our life, we might actually be able to attend to and see and engage the important over the urgent. What does our constant hurry do to us? Think about your own life. What is your sense of urgency do to you in the car? Especially if you're a parent. Hurry causes us to yell at the drivers around us rather than modeling grace in front of our children for people. Guilty, right here. I've done this. Hurry does this to us. In our work, hurry causes us to value productivity over people. We want to get things done. We want to accomplish things so we can go home. And so we're more attentive to the productivity and to the work product than we are to the people that are actually doing the work. In our relationships, hurry causes us to miss opportunities to grow into this deeper sense of love for the people in our life while we're spending time with them. We're in such a hurry that we don't even know how to stop and pause and engage deeply in our relationships. In our time with God, hurry causes us to get on our knees and make a list of our demands in prayer, never making room or time or space to hear God's reply. Hurry, constant urgency in our life becomes toxic to our souls. And Jesus says, deep breath, slow down. Tune your heart to what my heart does and who I am. Pay attention to the important, not just to the urgent, not just to the things that are screaming for your attention. What if we decided to choose the important over the urgent? One of my favorite stories about this is found in the Gospel of Luke. And it's a moment in the life of Jesus when he is making his way towards Jerusalem. And what we know about this journey towards Jerusalem is it was a journey that Jesus was not in a hurry to accomplish. Because in Jerusalem awaited his arrest, his trial, his murder, his suffering on our behalf. If I was Jesus, I wouldn't have been in a hurry to get to Jerusalem either. So he's on the way there, and this story happens in Luke during that journey. Luke chapter 10. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. So we don't get a ton of background about Mary and Martha in this particular account in the Gospel of Luke, but what we do know is that it's pretty clear that Jesus had a deep relationship with his family. This is the same family that when we tell the story of Lazarus, this is Jesus. These are his people. It's clear that Lazarus was his friend. It's clear that he knew Mary and Martha well. It's clear that he was in their home more than once, that he was comfortable there, that this was a normal rhythm and routine. We know that they were in a close relationship. So Jesus rolls into town. He's on his way to Jerusalem. And Martha felt a huge amount of pressure to be a hostess. Huge amount of pressure to make sure that everything was perfect and that Jesus was attended to and that she did all the things that needed to happen so that Jesus could feel cared for by her. She was frantic. I thought about showing that video that's been floating around on the web for a while about what happens when mom gets frantic when visitors come over to your house. It's way too long, and if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to watch it. It's hilarious. And so this is Martha. She's freaking out because Jesus came to visit, and there's so much to do. She's got to take care of things. She's got to clean. She's got to cook. She's got to take care of things. She's got to invite people over so they can hang out. And she's running around like crazy because she is worried. Think about the difference in your life between when your best friend comes over to your house. You know, the friend that's over at your house all the time. And if your boss said, hey, I'd love to come over for dinner sometime. How would you feel? What's the difference between that moment? When your best friend comes over, you may or may not pick up the laundry that you were doing that's piled on the couch, right? You may or may not do the dishes, right? And if you might want to have them clean, but you know that if your best friend comes over, it's not a big deal if they're in the sink still. You may or may not attend to all these things, but if your boss is going to come over and this is a big deal to you, you're like the kids are in the pantry scrubbing grandma's silver that you might not even use, right? Just in case you're cleaning the upstairs attic in case they want a tour of your house, right? You're stressed about this thing. This is totally a Martha moment. Martha was probably thinking to herself, man, I'd really love to spend time with Jesus, but I have all these urgent things to attend to. It'd sure be nice to spend time with Jesus if I didn't have all these urgent things to attend to. And I believe that Martha missed the important while pursuing the urgent. She missed the important while pursuing the urgent. We know that because we can see her interaction with Jesus as they go on in Luke 10:40. It says, but Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Martha is in such a hurry to get things done. She's so frustrated that she's doing it all by herself that she actually takes a jab at Jesus. Who does this? She's like, don't you care about me? Like, what's wrong with you, Jesus? And then she goes beyond that to not only taking a jab at Jesus, and that was kind of like this passive-aggressive jab, like trying to emotionally manipulate Jesus. You can't emotionally manipulate Jesus. Don't you see me over here, Jesus? I'm working really hard. Don't you care about me? And then she's like, tell my sister to get up and help me. I'm like, don't be telling Jesus what to do, okay? That's what I'm thinking now, reading it from here. But Martha, she had some guts. She was so wrapped up in this tyranny of the urgent that she was even willing to take jabs at Jesus. She was even willing to try to tell Jesus what it was that he should do. And I'm like, hold on, back up the truck for a second, Martha. Did you even ask Jesus what was most important to him? Did you even ask Jesus if he wanted you to make all those preparations? Did you even ask Jesus if he wanted to throw you what appears to be a party? Did you even ask him if he cared? Jesus didn't care about whether or not he had a big party. He wanted to spend time with them. Jesus didn't care whether the house was perfectly clean. He never said, "Blessed are those who have vacuum lines in their living room," right? He didn't say, "Blessed are those who practice hospitality only when they have the time to wax the floors and deep clean the bathrooms." Jesus didn't say that. We have to get in the habit of asking God what is important for our life, for our days, instead of assuming that we know what's best and then allowing ourselves to be consumed by those things that we choose to believe are most urgent. Just like Martha, we need Jesus to set our lives and our agendas straight. Just like Martha, we need Jesus to adjust our priorities. And he does so. He says, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Martha's urgency was causing her to doubt Jesus' love for her. Isn't that crazy? Jesus didn't do anything. Jesus didn't do anything that Jesus said or did. There was nothing Jesus said or did that would have caused Martha to question his love for her. It was Martha's busyness that was causing her to doubt Jesus' love for her. "Don't you care about me?" she said. "Don't you see me?" And not only was Martha's busyness causing her to doubt the love of Jesus for her, it was causing her to doubt her sister's love for her. "Why aren't you helping me? Don't you care about me? Don't you see me over here making myself crazy trying to clean everything and prep everything?" Mary didn't do anything to Martha. Jesus didn't do anything to Martha. Martha did something to Martha. And Jesus looks at her and says, "Martha, Martha, I see you. I love you. You're worried. You're upset about so many things. So many things. But few things are needed. Indeed, only one thing. And Mary has chosen what is better, and I will not take it away from her." First of all, if bitterness had creeped in far enough, this probably wasn't helpful. For Martha, who's already kind of a little upset at her sister, and Jesus is like, "Your sister's got it right and you got it wrong." If her heart wasn't ready to hear that, it might have actually made things worse. But Jesus draws her in. I would have been like, "No, I will not tell her to help you. No, I will not substantiate your misguided understanding of what your priorities should be. Get over here and let me set you straight." But instead, Jesus gently and lovingly turns her heart and addresses what the real priority needed to be. He points her back to loving people. He says, "Martha, time with people that you love is so much more important than what you're doing right now. You are tuned into the urgent when you need to be attuned in to the important. But in order to choose the important over the urgent, in order to do this, we have to allow God to change what we value most." We can see what Martha valued. She valued a clean home. She valued hospitality. She valued preparation more than she valued time with Jesus. We see it. We see what Mary valued. Mary valued sitting at the feet of Jesus and being with the one who loved her more than anyone had ever loved her in her life. In order to choose the important over the urgent, we have to allow God to change what we value most. I wonder all the time, did Martha actually change? We don't know much about Martha's story after that. Did she allow the truth that Jesus spoke to her that day, that one thing is needed, and it is actually the best thing? It's time with people you love, time with Jesus. Did she allow that to change what she valued the most. That she allow her heart to come into alignment with what Jesus valued the most. Because honestly, what Jesus valued the most is what should be valuable to you and I. We see his values in how he chose to spend his time. And I could give you a list of dozens of things that Jesus did that proved his values. He sought the Father regularly. He pulled away to seek the Father. He embraced outcasts. People that were different, people that struggled, people of different minority groups and people of different genders than him. He embraced the outcast. He restored broken lives. We see his value there. He confronted hypocrisy and liars and people that were in power and using that power over people. He engaged God's word and taught it to people on a regular basis. He served people. He equipped leaders. But everything that he did can be summed up by a verse that we see just a few lines before the story of Mary and Martha. Just a few short verses before we read the story of Mary and Martha. Jesus is teaching. And someone says, what's the most important thing that we could do? What's the number one priority of our life? We talk about this all the time because there is nothing more important. If Jesus gives you a top priority, we need to pay attention. And he says in Luke chapter 10, verse 27, this is what your priority should be. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself, and be in a hurry all the time. No, this kind of love isn't in a hurry. This kind of love cannot be microwaved. This kind of dedication to God and dedication to the people around us doesn't happen in a rush. It doesn't work that way. And as I read about Jesus' call to love people and to love God, as I see the way he lived that out in his life, I go back to the story of Mary and Martha and I wonder to myself, I wonder who loved Jesus more, Mary or Martha? Who loved Jesus more? And the easy answer would be Mary because she sat at his feet, but I don't think that's the right answer. I think it was both of them. They probably loved Jesus equally. Mary just was willing to sit and bask in the love of Jesus, while Martha thought she still had to earn it. I think they both loved Jesus equally. But Martha was still convinced that she had to earn it, that she had to do something to maintain it, to foster it. And Jesus is like, no, just come and sit. You can't do anything to make me love you more. Because the second question is the same as the first, but who did Jesus love more? Did he love Mary or did he love Martha more? The answer is neither. He loved them both more than they could possibly imagine. Martha didn't need to be busy for Jesus' love to increase for her. She just needed to be Martha. Hanging out, spending time, engaging. Jesus was about to go to the cross and die. He just wanted to hang out with some people that were really, really close to him. And I think when we spend time with Jesus and we sit at his feet like Mary did, we begin to understand what it is that's most important. What it looks like to love God with everything we have. What it looks like to love our neighbors ourselves. I love that we are rolling out this neighbor initiative. I also love that Mr. Rogers was on the picture. I wish that he was here to lead the ministry. It'd be amazing. So this is what I want to ask you. When was the last time that you honestly sat down and reevaluated your priorities? When was the last time you sat down, honestly sat down, and asked God, are my priorities in alignment with what you would have me do? When was the last time you paused and looked at your life and made the hard decisions to strip away things that were constantly causing you to be in a rush and in a hurry so you could be present fully in a moment? Have you ever asked God what your priorities should be? Have you ever been bold enough to sit before God and say, God, what's the most important thing in my life that I've been distracted from pursuing? This is a big question. What's the most important thing in your life that you've been distracted from pursuing? A priority that God would have you go after. Time with him, time with your kids. Yesterday, I really wanted to just sit and soak in my sermon for a little bit longer, but my son Antoine really wanted to go fishing. We totally did. We fished in the rain yesterday. It was fantastic. We only fished for about 30 minutes because it was pouring rain. We caught 8 fish in 30 minutes. It was so good. In this little polluted creek by my house. It was awesome. The important over the urgent. Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's time with God. Maybe it's your marriage. Maybe it has to do with attending to the needs of your body and the way you're working out or eating more healthy. Maybe it's just reading, going for a walk, journaling. Maybe it's actually coming here to church. That your life is so busy that you have like 2 out of every 4 Sundays that you can make it and be here with your church family. We have to learn to choose the important over the urgent, and the best way to do that is to ask God to rearrange what we value most. Mary chose the one thing. Mary chose the one thing, Jesus. And I believe that in that moment, that not only did Mary choose the one thing that was best and was most important, but that Jesus chose to be with her too. Because that was what was most important to him. And I'm convinced that the same thing would happen today. That if Jesus rolled in the flesh into this place, that he would choose you. He would choose me. He would choose us to sit with us and see us and love us and know us. But getting to know someone cannot be done quickly. It takes time, and we can't be in a hurry, or else it will never happen. In the rhythm and the schedule of the church, today is the day that we call Pentecost. It's really the birthday of the church, honestly. It's the day that came after Jesus was already died and resurrected. He had already reappeared to the disciples, and he had left, and he had told them, don't be in a hurry. Wait. Just wait, because something amazing is going to happen. If you choose to not be in a hurry and you choose to wait, something amazing is going to happen. And when that something happens, it's going to be a catalyst for the good news of my good news, the gospel, across all of the nations. Don't be in a hurry, though, he said. Wait right here. Sit right here until the Holy Spirit comes and fills you up and enables you and empowers you to align your life with my priorities, to align your life with my rhythms, to align your life with what is most important and valuable to me. Otherwise, you will get sucked in to the urgent. Jesus built rhythms like this into our life for a reason. And one of those rhythms that he built in is the communion table. And I love this because what Jesus did is, in a very unhurried fashion, as he sits and reclines with his disciples, the night before he was betrayed, he sat there and he was eating, and he took bread and he broke it. And he said, "This is my body broken for you." In the same way, after supper, he took the cup and he said, "This cup represents my blood shed for you." He said, "As often as you eat the bread and you drink the cup, you proclaim my death until I come again. Sit, eat, rest, engage over table with one another. And when you do, sit, rest, wait on me." When we engage communion, when we step into this holy rhythm, we begin once again to align our heart with the rhythm that God calls us to be in. That at the center of life is God. At the center of life is Jesus, who sits here and he looks at you and I and he says, "I would choose to sit with you over anything else in the world." And for some of you today, my hope is that this would be the first time you've ever received communion. And in a moment, the ushers are going to come. They're going to pass bits of bread that's gluten-free so everyone can engage. Little cups of juice. And we just eat them and drink them when we're ready. But I encourage you today, don't be in a hurry. Sit there, hold the elements, wait, rest. Think about what this means. And maybe for you, today is the first day that you could do this and do it in a way that you actually have a relationship with God through Jesus. And I want to pray for you in that way right now. Would you pray with me? Jesus, we just pause. We are in such a hurry all the time. Driven by the urgent. Driven by the busyness of life. So we choose right now, God, deep breath in and out. We choose to wait. We choose to today intentionally ask you, what is your priority for us? What is our one thing? And for some of you here today, your one thing is to choose God. To choose to move from being far from God, lost in your own ways, to being close to the one who loves you more than anyone could ever possibly love you. And if that's you, we just encourage you to say yes to Jesus today, to confess your need for him, your longing for life to be different. God, we long to know you. Forgive me for the ways that I've rushed through life, missing out on what's most important. Forgive me for the ways that I've decided what my priorities were on my own and never asked you. Realign my heart, God, today with you. I commit my time, my agenda, and my life to you. In the name of Jesus.